Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's Learning Series event where we're covering mastering virtual career fairs and employer engagement. So here's Make America started these types of workshops to assist the broader military community with tips and tricks to help land that next career. So whether you're currently in the process of separating out of the service or maybe you're already out, transitioning from the military is a process. Or if you're a military spouse who's looking for your next career, this event is also beneficial to better understand how to continue to make yourself competitive each change of location. So, and the way that things are nowadays, right, understanding how to do all of that and navigating it in a virtual environment is also crucial. So, welcome again. Let me introduce myself. My name is Katie Bowerman. I'm a senior manager with the Manufacturing Institute, and I oversee the Virtual Heroes Make America Military Skill Bridge Training Program, which we'll talk about in a minute. In addition to a variety of other virtual events like this workshop series, we have virtual career fairs, as well as our Heroes Connect events that we put on for our military community to better understand and connect with folks in our industry, so our industry employers. Let me take a minute, have me have my co-presenter introduce herself before we dive into the presentation for today. So Rachel.
Thanks so much, Katie. Hello, everyone. My name is Rachel Wolford. I am Director of Program Operations with the Heroes Make America program, currently located in Fort Riley, Kansas, but I do oversee all of our DoD skill bridge training programs and pathways, while also really focusing in on processes and operational improvements. So really looking forward to co-leading this session with Katie today.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. So let's move on through our presentation. I do want to cover some general guidelines just so that we're all on the same page going into the event. So first off, the event is being recorded and it's going to be sent out as part of a recap email after the event. So please make sure you stay muted throughout the presentation to minimize any background noise. So although we're going to stay muted, I still want you and encourage you to be an active participant. Utilize that chat feature. So during the presentation, if questions come up, please drop them in the chat, and Rachel and I will keep an eye on that and answer them throughout the presentation, or we'll circle back to them at the end. But really, this is your opportunity to ask those questions as you're preparing to be successful in your job search and you're preparing to go to the different career fairs and employer events throughout the process. Before we dive into our topic today, not everyone on this call is familiar with Heroes Make America, so I do want to mention a little bit about us and that our mission is to build connections between the military community and the manufacturing industry. You see here the four main areas that our program focuses on. First off, where it all started, our signature DoD-approved Skill Bridge training program and Army CSP. We have 7 different training programs across the country, 5 in person and 2 virtual, in which we are training transitioning active duty service members, veterans, military spouses, in various skills that are needed by our industry. I'll go over those training tracks in just a second. Secondly, we have our almost weekly Heroes Connect military to manufacturing virtual employer events. We do have another one next week, and we bring in various companies for our military community to learn who is out there hiring and just how aligned your skills and experiences are in the manufacturing industry. Third, we have this learning series. We have these open events and we cover topics that are designed to help folks, as they're searching for their next career chapter. Lastly, and we're in our 3rd year of doing this, we host manufacturing industry specific, so industry focused career fairs, both virtually and in person. So we do have some upcoming virtual ones as well as some in-person ones at some of our training sites. We're busy, so we're going to drop in a few links in the chat so that you're able to connect with us and know what's going on. So like I mentioned, we do have some virtual career fairs that are coming up. And so what we wanted to do was have this workshop to prepare for those. The next ones that we have are this Friday, February 7th. We have a virtual regional based career fair, as well as a national one coming up on February 28th. Both will be 11 to 2 Eastern. So as always with virtual events, be sure to adjust for your time zone if you're not on the Eastern side for the time zone. So I do have listed here the employers who are currently registered for both events. Be sure to check out the event website. So we'll drop in the event websites so you can see the employers who are registered for each of the events and get links to their websites. We talk about this throughout the presentation, but don't judge a book by its cover. Although you may not immediately recognize the company names, it is important to do your research on all of them. You never know if one could be a perfect fit for you, or it might open the door to a conversation with a company or a contact that that person has at a company who is located in the area that you're going to. Networking is part of the process. So don't let these folks, you don't recognize their names, don't let that scare you. These are wonderful companies and great opportunities as you're looking to go into your next chapter. Let's see here. Even though we're going to cover mostly virtual career fairs, tips and tricks, a lot of this can also be taken for employer engagement in general. So in-person career fairs, other events that you could go to, these tips and tricks really do apply to a lot of different situations. So think of it through that lens as well. I do want to point out that registration is required for probably all virtual career fairs. That's how you get the meeting link, and for many in-person ones as well. So don't forget to register, and usually register early because sometimes they send out pre-event information to make sure that you're ready for it. It is important that as part of your registration, if they have the option to upload your resume, be sure you upload it. That's what the employers are getting and reaching back out to you based off of your experience and skills. So just as a reminder, if you registered already for our upcoming event on Friday, but maybe you didn't upload your resume, you can go back and modify that. So let's look at what that means. So what happens, like I said, if you registered, but you didn't upload, don't stress. You should have gotten an email after you registered for the event, confirming your registration and sending you the Zoom meeting link. So one, flag that email so that you know what the meeting link is for the day of the event. So you're not searching through your email. So flag that email. But then at the bottom of our email, there should be an option to modify your registration. So with that, you can then upload or replace, like let's say you registered 2 weeks ago, you've made some critical updates to your resume. You can take down the old resume, re-upload a new one. You can modify that throughout the registration. Okay, I do recommend you upload as a PDF in general to all events. I always recommend uploading your resume as a PDF so that formatting isn't lost, like if you upload a Word doc. All right, so now that we've covered some of the basics, let's move on to our main topic for today. I'm actually going to pass it on over to Rachel, and she's going to talk us through the first portion of preparing for virtual career fairs. So Rachel?
Thanks so much, Katie. I appreciate you driving the slide deck over there.
Oh, Rachel, I accidentally may have muted you. You can unmute yourself real quick. I meant to mute myself.
It's okay. Sometimes I mute myself too. So like I was saying, based on this slide, achieving success at career fairs, both in person and virtually, really breaks down into three buckets. So, what to do before, during, and after the event. So, I'm going to start by covering that before the event portion. So, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about some of the key steps to take to make sure that you stand out, right? We want to present ourselves in a way that shows that we came prepared. So, when we talk about that preparation, what do we need to have with us? Making sure we have fine-tuned our documents, doing some pre-event research. It's time to kind of up your game, and get ready to navigate virtual career fairs like a pro. So after the call today, you're going to receive an email similar to the one that you see on the screen here. This email will include an attachment with critical pieces of information about the employers that are currently scheduled for the event. If you do not receive this email later today, please make sure to check your junk or spam folders. We know sometimes things get routed in there, so start by looking there first. And then if for some reason you still don't find that, you can reach out at to our team. Heroes@nam.org is a great way to connect with us and ensure that somebody responds. We'll also drop a copy of the document in the chat right now so that you can access it immediately. And now that you know what you're going to be looking for, let's dive into kind of how to use that information on the next slide. So this is what that attachment, that spreadsheet, is going to look like. So as you can see, the employer details attachment provides some really critical information that you can use to start researching employers in advance of the event. We will also provide you with a dedicated point of contact for each organization so that you can follow up after the event, which we'll discuss in just a little bit. But right now, let's really focus on some of that pre-event prep. It's our recommendation that you visit each employer's career website as you see linked above, even if they reference that they are only hiring for a specific area or region. Keep your options open. You never know what unique opportunity may present itself to you unless you're willing to explore your options. Even if an employer doesn't have openings in the career paths or the destinations that you're looking for, these events are the perfect opportunity for you to practice your networking skills. You can practice using your elevator pitch, practice sharing about your skills and experience, and putting some onus on the employer. I come from a logistics and supply background in the military. I did this for 10 years, leading teams of 10 plus individuals. I'm really passionate about these key things. What types of roles should I be exploring in the manufacturing sector? So even if that company is not necessarily the right fit, this is an opportunity to practice talking about yourself in preparation for the companies that will be the right fit. It's a great opportunity to network and to engage employers. Uh, the more you practice talking about why you'd be an asset to an organization, the better you get at it, right? Practice makes perfect. We also recommend that you spend some time on their About page to learn more about the organization as a whole, and we'll take a look at what those pages may look like on our next slide. So in the About section, so this is a sample that we pulled off of one of our program supporters pages, Niagara. So in that About section there, you can usually get some unique insights into the organization. It's where you may uncover the company's history, mission, values, and the unique vibe that kind of sets them apart from the rest. Think of this as a page that really can showcase their story or history, their passion projects, their vision for the future, and you can then leverage that to one, help guide you in determining if this company is the right fit for you, but it also creates talking points. So in preparation for going into those breakout rooms with those employers, you might find little snippets of information where you're like, oh, I see they're planning to expand to this location. That is an area I'm interested in. So maybe you're going to ask questions in the breakout room about that. And then the employer's career section is what we call the home of opportunity. So you're going to dive a little deeper into this section to not only uncover job listings, but insights into company, once again, culture, commitment to employee development, projects that you could be a part of. It's your chance to find the match between your skills and passion and a company that values and nurtures them. Okay. So don't be deceived or discouraged by the position titles that you find here. You really have to make sure that you spend time reading the position description to see if it's a good fit. I'll use a perfect example. I had a mechanic that came through my program. Relocating to Jacksonville, Florida, had identified Johnson and Johnson as an employer of choice in that area. He wanted to continue to go into maintenance and mechanical roles. So we're scrolling through the page and we see some titles listed as engineering technician or engineering operations. And he initially was like, it says engineering. I'm not going to qualify for that because I don't have a degree. And I said, nope, we're going to take a second. We're going to read into this job description. So we open the job description and we read through it. Nowhere was there a degree requirement. And he actually met all of the qualifications of what they were looking for. However, had he let the job title, the position title, dictate whether or not he opened the link, he'd have never applied for those jobs. And that's where he actually works now in one of those positions. Employers use different terminology and titles for a variety of roles, and the only way you'll know if it may be the right fit is to click in and read the position description. So you've learned how to start researching our participating companies. While you're doing this, you will need to craft what we call your information sheet that you can easily access while you are on the event. So what you don't want to be doing is scrambling to find certain things when you're in the midst of an engaging conversation. You want to be able to deliver immediately. So this sheet will contain critical information that you can share with an employer and will be important to use during breakout room sessions. It will allow you to have your information all in one place where you can copy and paste it into the chat and or email it as necessary because they may drop an email and say, hey, send me your resume, and you want to be able to fire that off quickly. So first and foremost, you want to have your contact information. So think three really probably important items: name, email, and LinkedIn if you want to provide your LinkedIn. I do recommend refraining from sharing a phone number. This is a public facing event, so you don't want everybody to have access to that phone number. So email and LinkedIn should be sufficient for them to reach out to you. But it also means that you must check your email on a routine basis. As an active job seeker, we do recommend checking it at least once every 24 hours during the business week, Monday through Friday. Next is your 30-second elevator pitch. We're going to drop a resource in the chat for you that you can utilize to help develop your elevator pitch. This should be approximately a 30-second introduction where you tell an employer who you are, what you do, how you do it, why you do it, and who you do it for. So you're kind of selling yourself to the employer. Then you want to make a list by company of any current roles that you might be interested in. You might also consider listing the types of roles that you're interested in. So maybe you found a company that's in the location that you prefer, but they don't currently have any positions open that you're interested in. Go ahead and at least identify those positions and go into that breakout room and ask them. This is kind of the career path I'm interested in. Do you foresee any of these roles coming open in the near future? A lot of the times, roles are popping on and off those web pages so quickly that they may have something that they know is going to be coming available that you'd be a great fit for. Workforce needs are ongoing and new jobs are added every day. And then ensure that you have questions for the employer. Okay. This is kind of a informal interview when you're in these breakout rooms. Just like with a real interview, you want to ask questions of the employer. It should be a two-way conversation because you want to make sure that that company is the right fit for you. We're also going to drop a great resource in the chat that you can utilize to help identify some of those role key questions that are of importance to you, right? Maybe you want to ask, what are, if I'm interested in this specific position, can you tell me what are some of the top priorities? Or this is the career pathway I'm interested in. What are some key areas of experience or certification somebody should have to be successful in that role? And then you can still use this document as well to capture key contact information from the employers and their recruiters from the breakout room chat. A lot of the times they're going to have information on the screen or they'll drop it in the chat where you can follow up with them after the event. And then here are some other best practices to ensure a successful virtual career fair for yourself. We recommend using a computer for easier access to chat in breakout rooms. But if you do have to use your phone, make sure you've updated your Zoom app or you won't be able to see the breakout rooms. We do encourage the use of virtual backgrounds to minimize distractions. We want to see you. So if you're in a spot in your home where you're like, I don't really want them to see the mess that's on the counter behind me, that's okay. Flip on a virtual background. Make sure to rename yourself so that employers know who you are. There's nothing worse than getting into a breakout room and asking a really great question, and they're like, well, that's a good question, iPhone, because you forgot to rename yourself. Be in a set location for 100% attention. No driving during the event. But if for some reason you absolutely are, keep your camera off and then just turn it on once you're in a safe location and are able to participate. Dress for success. We know this is a virtual event, but you should really treat it the same as an in-person career fair. Look the part. If you look good, you feel good. First impressions matter even in a virtual career fair. Have a PDF version of your resume available. Uploading Word documents can sometimes skew formatting, so PDF locks in the format and will prevent any issues there. If you have an email that you've had for about the past 15 years, 20 years, and you get 100 spam emails a day, or maybe it's not the right um, type of email that you want to present yourself with, it's always a good idea to consider creating a separate email that you can use for job searching to help centralize and ensure that you don't miss anything. And then updating your LinkedIn URL. Sometimes we have all those numbers and symbols and things like that after our name. There's a really easy way to update your LinkedIn URL. You usually have to do it from a desktop computer, but we'll drop a link in here to tell you how to update that. And with that, I'm going to flip it back over to Katie.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Let's move on over to the next one. One thing that I do want to just echo, kind of capturing the advice that Rachel is giving about the preparation for the event. That's the difference of being an active job seeker versus a passive job seeker, right? Putting in that time and energy and effort to preparing yourself for this event to be able to maximize your return on investment instead of just showing up, see what I learned, see what happens, really putting in that effort ahead of time to capitalize on it. So You did all this great research ahead of time. You're preparing your documents. You're ready to roll. So now let's talk about we're there. It's the day of. Um, let's talk through how do we be successful in the event itself. So let's talk through things like the event schedule and technology aspects like navigating breakout rooms. And then we'll go into some best practices when it comes to attending those virtual and in-person employer events in general. All right, so for in particular, the industry focused event this Friday, there is some structure to it. So you do want to be logged in from the beginning. The first half hour is dedicated to learning more about the premier employers, right up there. All the employers will be there. There'll be a select few that have 5-minute presentations at the beginning of the event where you can get a sneak peek at what their company does and in what locations. You've done your research ahead of time. You have looked at their websites. You've looked at the employer detail spreadsheet, but these presentations give you life to all of that. Kind of gives you pictures. They usually show what products they make, what locations they're in. It helps kind of put those big picture details in front of you before jumping into the breakout rooms themselves. But really, for any career fair you decide to attend, virtual or in person, it's super important to look over the event schedule ahead of time to ensure you're not missing any key components like that. Like if there's a presentation in the beginning or a workshop to kick it off, and then you're opening it up to whatever breakout rooms or opportunities to speak with employers individually. So just looking at the event ahead of time and being sure that you're on time so that you don't miss anything. And always try to be there at the beginning to really capitalize on all the employers being there, being active, being present, and engaging with everyone from the beginning. For this event on Friday, we do utilize Zoom just like today as the platform. In order to facilitate that more direct conversation between you and the employers, we utilize the breakout rooms. So actually, I will make one live just for a minute, just so you can see on your panels what it looks like. So I have an image here that shows you where you can find the breakout room icon on your control panel. It's going to be 4 little squares. Once you hit that icon, a separate window opens where you can see which rooms are available. So right now I've just got some sample ones there, but at the event, you'll see all the employers listed in alphabetical order. So you can go in and click each of them. Super easy. You just click on the breakout rooms, it opens the window, and then there's a join button next to each of the rooms. What I recommend, go to all of them. Spend time, plan to be with us the entire time, and go to all of them. You know, maybe have your top companies identified before the event. You know, I for sure want to, at minimum, speak to these 3 or 4 because they've got positions I'm interested in. I know that I want to talk to them. Be sure you have that, but really spend the rest of the time learning, using Rachel's advice and going in and having them tell you, you know, what kind of positions might be a great fit and just see where the conversation goes. You'll see that some of the breakout rooms may have quite a few people in them, right? Because we may recognize, like this Friday, a company called Gorilla Glue is going to be there. You probably have their glue sitting in your toolbox outside in the garage. You recognize that brand name. So maybe there's going to be a lot of people there, but there won't be as many in another room. Use your time wisely. I think the empty rooms are often a phenomenal way to have one-on-one attention to be able to ask those questions that Rachel had recommended. Spending that extra time by yourself with those employers or in a smaller setting versus having the larger group. Both, there's pros and cons to both, right? Having that presentation in a big group is also phenomenal. Do both and just navigate throughout them throughout the time. Okay. Same with any other career fair. Have identified top 3, 4, 5 companies. Make sure you hit those. Spend the time getting your questions answered, but still go around, walk to every table at that career fair, go into every breakout room. You never know what you might learn. Oftentimes, it's a small industry. Oftentimes, manufacturers know other manufacturers. They might have a sister location in the area you're relocating to, or they might know of a great company, or maybe they used to work for another company in that location. Networking is unique, and you just never know where it's going to take you. So spending that extra time doing that and learning everything you can from each of these employers and practicing for yourself to make sure that you're ready for those interviews when you do get there. Okay, let's go into some best practices. I did mention already, make sure you log in early. Set a calendar reminder, have an alarm go off. Make sure that you log in 10 minutes before just to make sure you're good to go. Your Zoom doesn't, suddenly have to update and you can't get in on time. I do recommend if you're on your phone, making sure that it's the most updated version of Zoom, or else you won't have access to that breakout room option. So just make sure that you have the most up-to-date application for Zoom. I do recommend going into your Zoom settings and, like Rachel said, making sure it's your first and last name. You can adjust that ahead of time. So go into your profile settings, make sure it says your first and last name. Then you don't have to worry about changing it the day of. And then also just making sure you're there ready. So waiting in the waiting room. So that when the event starts, you're not missing anything. If you get into the event and your audio is not automatically muted, just be sure that you do mute yourself, just to minimize that background noise, because I know sometimes we're multitasking. So just make sure that you are muted when you're not talking. Of course, when you're in the breakout rooms and you're having that individual conversation, unmute away. They want you to talk. They want you to have that conversation. When we're in the bigger rooms or in the main session, something just to be mindful of, right? Our cameras are on. So just be aware of your facial expressions, your angle of your camera, like Rachel mentioned, your background, what's happening in the background. Just be aware, conscious of what's going on in your video. These are employers, and this is your first impression. First impressions do matter. So just making sure that you're aware of those facial expressions, angles, and then yeah, just like in person, being aware of those things. It's sometimes less front of mind when we're in a virtual setting. Okay. And then last, let's see. So be mindful of facial expressions, and then like I mentioned before, being an active job seeker. So doing that research ahead of time, and then also being active in the event itself. Not all of us are extroverted. I want to say all the things and be in front of the camera and comfortable saying all of that in front of a large group. That's okay. Being active also means being active in the chat. So if you're not able to ask those questions live on camera, or if we're not comfortable doing that, utilizing the chat feature. As a reminder, you can post in the chat as to the larger group, or when you're in a breakout room or in the main session, you can also direct message any of these employers and maybe having that individual conversation between you and that employer in the chat. So just being active and asking those questions, whether you're on camera or not, knowing that those are all options for you to be able to still talk with them. And then, of course, being respectful, right? Keeping your contributions to those that are helpful and considerate. These events are meant to be professional, career building opportunities. So things like if the speaker is doing a presentation in the breakout room, just being, you know, polite, not interrupting the speaker, waiting for them to ask for questions. If the speaker or the presenter doesn't provide a contact information, just be sure you ask that question so that you can send a thank you note after the event, follow up with any additional questions. And then another just piece of advice to be an active participant, if they do have a way for you to schedule a follow-up. Like let's say they say, put time on my calendar, use this link. I highly, highly encourage you capture that in the moment, go on and put time on their calendar so that you don't forget to do it later on. Or after you leave that breakout room, they say, email me this, take a moment, come back to the lobby, send whatever follow-up you need to real quick, or take, jot it down so you don't forget to do it after the event. And then lastly, after the event, provide feedback, right? The hosts, the presenters, the employers all love feedback. So there's usually some type of survey at the end. With our event, we do have a survey that will launch in your browser as you exit Zoom. It'll actually open up in your browser. Just take a minute, give us your feedback. We adjust the events to meet the needs of our participants. So we're always looking for great feedback. Let us know what went well, what didn't. We would love that. So those are just some best practices when it comes to being in the event. Rachel already provided some great ones to prep ahead of time. So just implementing those in the event and just doing your best. It's a lot. It's overwhelming when it comes to our event because it's breakout rooms. If you need to come back to the lobby, take a minute, maybe ask Rachel and myself. We usually hang out in the lobby. Any tips or tricks or feedback, we're happy to help with that as well. It's okay to take a minute before jumping into another one, but still going into each of them as needed. Rachel, did I miss anything? Do you feel like we have any other best practices when it comes to being in the career fair itself?
Nope, I think you covered them all. I was mentally checking them off as
Perfect.
you were going through.
Awesome. Well, let's move on over to after the event. What do we do, Rachel?
Wonderful. So, what you do after the event is just as important as each of the other two steps, what we do before and during the event. So, you've had the opportunity to engage with employers, you've kind of captured that key contact information, and if you missed it, you have a POC on that employer detail list. So, what do you do next? Well, lucky for you, that's what we're going to cover in the next couple of slides. So as you can see here, things don't stop when you click leave at the end of the virtual career fair. First and foremost, because you're going to get that survey. But we've created this flowchart to show you how to continue to capitalize on the interactions you had during the event. So the big thing is continue to research employers after the event, right? As we discussed earlier in this session, they are constantly updating their career opportunities. I mean, from the time you research today to Friday, there may be new jobs posted. I can almost guarantee it. Providing any deliverables that an employer requested of you. Did they ask for a resume? Make sure that you've sent that. They ask you to send them a follow-up email with dates that you were available to talk? Make sure that you send that. You want to stay top of mind. So being timely in delivering the things that are asked of us is incredibly important. Connect with these employers on LinkedIn and build your network. Even if that company or recruiter didn't have exactly what you were looking for, right? This creates pathways in which they can continue to engage you, right? And LinkedIn, if you looked at it, we call it like the 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Everybody is connected to somebody who may be relevant to you. So the more you expand and grow that network, the more connections are going to see things about you as well. Schedule a follow up call or an informational interview to learn more about an organization or careers that might be a right fit for you. So, some of the companies, because we provide them best practices as well, may list like a Calendly link as an example where you can go in and you can book a time specifically to have a very one on one conversation where you say, this is what I want to do. I see that you have this job open. I'm very interested, right? Or it's an informational interview kind of like in the breakout rooms. This is my background and my experience. Can you tell me what types of roles you have that align? Send a post event email to share about career opportunities that you're interested in, and we'll have a sample of that to share with you here in just a moment. And then apply, right? That's the big thing we want from this. We want you to apply for jobs. Landing the next career is the goal, right? But we can't get to that point without applying. Even if you talk with a company and they're like, absolutely, we want to hire you. You are the right fit. There are formalities that have to happen as part of the hiring process, and usually submitting an application is the first one. And then connect with our team. If you apply for one of the positions with one of those employers, we would love to help follow up on that application, create visibility around that application with those employers. And you can always email us heroes@nam.org and then share those success stories. We'd love to hear about how the event went with you. If you move forward with one of the employers, maybe something didn't work out the way that you wanted it to, and you learned something from it. Share those with us as well. Provide us that feedback because the goal is to consistently improve upon these events for you all as well. And then prepare for the next event by doing an AAR, right? That after action review. What worked well? What didn't work well? What could you have done better, right? Was there a question that they asked you that you just really struggled with? Well, then start prepping to be better at that question the next time. Oh, next slide, Katie. Thank you, dear. And then this is an exceptional example of how one of our Heroes Make America students reached out to employers after one of our virtual career fairs. And there's a couple of key items I want to point out here, okay? She led off by introducing herself and referencing how she met them. This is a great way to validate yourself. We see this on an email, text, social media platforms. Anybody ever get a message like, demanding something from you and you're like, I don't even know who you are. How did we even meet? So you're a little less receptive to respond, right? That's why we want to introduce ourselves. Hey, my name is Rachel. I had the opportunity to learn more about your organization at the Heroes Make America Virtual Career Fair on February 28th. So now you've introduced yourself and you've referenced how you met and engaged. And then identify or share what you have been doing. Like here, she identified that she had been researching the company and had found some positions within the organization that she was interested in and where they were located. So she referenced specific positions, right? So we see here Lily in North Carolina, right? Um, Once again, it's that attention to detail, like Katie was talking about being an active job seeker versus a passive job seeker. She made an ask. May I get some guidance from you before I apply? This shows follow through and intent. And she wasn't just reaching out and saying, hey, I applied. Can you help me get the job? Right? There is a proper way to engage with an employer on that, right? We can start off the email in the same way. Hey, my name is so and so. I met you at this event. Very interested in this facility located in this city and state. I applied for this position and I would appreciate any support that you can provide in creating some additional visibility around my application, right? That would be a very professional way to ask for support there, not just can you look at my application? Um, but what I like here is she asked for guidance, right? She wanted somebody to take a look at her resume to make sure that she'd done a good job making sure that she was aligning her skills and experience with the position. A lot of these companies that get on these career fairs have teams or team members who have offered their time to support those types of things. So it's okay to make those asks. And then she provided her resume for easy access and linked the positions that she was interested in. So sometimes it can be hard for an employer if you say, hey, I'm interested in this quality manager position at in North Carolina, the more specific you are, the easier it is for them to find the actual role. Because sometimes they'll have multiple positions that are the same title opened up at a singular facility. So being very specific with that information makes it easier for them to dive in on the position. And then finally, and one of the most important things is she thanked them. She thanked them for their time, for considering her request, and that she was looking forward to engaging with them. So I call it a thanks sandwich, right? Like we're going to start being really positive. She talked about having the opportunity to meet them at a career fair, made her ask in the middle, and then closed with a thanks again. So we just want to be very positive with our dialogue. And then as we start to come to the end of our presentation, we want you to be exposed to what our employers receive after the event. So while we are encouraging you to stay connected and to follow up, we are making the same ask of our employers who attend. And if you registered and uploaded those resumes, they're going to receive your registration information and a copy of your resume. So once again, this reinforces the importance of editing your registration if you did not originally provide this document and upload it as a PDF. Be prepared for them to engage, folks. Check your email and your phone. Be responsive, right? We know how frustrating it is as job seekers to apply for a position and then to never hear anything, right? It is equally as frustrating as an employer to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I see that you're interested in this location and these types of positions. We think we might have a role that's a good fit for you. We'd love to connect. Here's how to schedule some time with us. And then they never hear anything, right? And if you wait too long, right? Maybe they send the email and you wait to respond for 2 weeks. It's a lack of attention to detail. You're not very responsive. By then, the role may be gone and filled. So we want to focus on that attention to detail, that timeliness, and that way that the employers know that this is important to you. So with that, we are going to move into our Q&A session and really provide you guys an opportunity to pick our brains if you have any questions.
If you do have any questions, feel free to either throw it in the chat. We've got that open ready. And then also If you are a brave soul and want to come on live in your control panel on Zoom, there is a react button and a raise hand feature. So feel free to raise your hand if you have any questions. But to kick it off, there was two things I made a note of. So Rachel had mentioned ensuring that you connect with these folks on LinkedIn, whether you're doing it in the moment in the breakout room, sending it on over, or doing it as a follow-up item. What I highly encourage you to do is send a note with your connection request. So just like in the email example that Rachel gave, she said, identify yourself on the top and where you met. So again, LinkedIn, send that note with your connection request. We met at the February 7th, February 28th career fair, and we talked about this or whatever it is, right? Put in some kind of note so they know who you are because they might get 20 that day just from the career fair. But dropping in that little note, it's very easy to miss it. Sometimes it's easier to do it on a desktop version than on your phone to send that connection request, just as a heads up. And then Rachel also mentioned giving that feedback back to Heroes. So if you have any questions of us, or if you want to announce that maybe you received a position based off of our career fair, we would love to hear that. We have success stories of job seekers from our last 2 years of these career fairs who have received jobs from these career fairs. It's not just people are getting on here and meeting people, literally people are getting jobs from the career fair. And they share that back with us so that we can share those great stories moving forward as well. So two pieces that I wanted to add on to you, Rachel, on your portion.
And I saw Steven's question in the chat. So he asked, how do I change my video background to a more professional look? So one, if you are a Heroes participant, we do usually email out a Zoom background that you can use, but you can always search and just Google. Zoom even has some pre-provided backgrounds, but you're going to access that. There's a small little up arrow, I call it a caret, right next to your video option. And when you click that, it gives you the option to, you can blur your background, you can click that adjust background and effects. And when you click that, it's going to take you into a pop-up that will then give you options. So you can choose virtual backgrounds, filters, things like that. So if you find a background you like, you can save it, you can upload it and use it. If you're a Heroes participant, you can use a background similar to what Katie and I have. But that's how you locate it is that little caret right there next to the video option. And I will add, since we're talking Heroes backgrounds, I would recommend, if you are a Heroes participant, to wear your polo. If you have one, it's a great way to identify yourself and help yourself stand out in front of our employers as well.
I was going to mention the same thing. Wear your polo. Um, Sign up for my class. I will send out the background. I failed to do that. So if you're a virtual manufacturing operation class, I will send that background out. But there are those other virtual ones available in the meantime if needed.
Yep, whatever you're comfortable with. Sometimes even just blurring your background can be beneficial. I do that a lot just personally and professionally on like Teams meetings with my team. I don't want them to have to see everything that's on my walls per se. They can see the colors, but they don't necessarily see the chaos to go with the colors. So, what other questions do we have?
That covers the ones in the chat for now. Oh, there's a question, another one. Would you recommend tailoring my resume for a specific job I'm applying for?
So I have two recommendations, two frames of mind. If you have specific jobs that you're interested in, then yes, I would come prepared with a tailored resume that you could provide to that organization when you go into their breakout room, especially if you say, hey, I'm very interested in this position. I've actually tailored my resume to the job and I'd love to share it with you today. Outstanding. You're going to stand out. Stellar. Great job. Preparation. I would also have a kind of generalized resume that's kind of targeted on the career trajectory you're looking for. Like if you're looking at logistics, that's more logistics focused or operations or maintenance. And then that way, if you go into a breakout room with a company where maybe you didn't identify a specific position, you have a more generalized resume that's more encompassing of your skills and experience that you can share that's not necessarily hyper focused towards a specific job. Katie?
Agree. Those two versions, having that general, tailored towards that type of position, but then if you did the research ahead of time, already know you're going to apply to a job, having that tailored available and giving it to them, stellar. I love that idea as well. So hopefully that answered your question, Alberto. Let's see, I saw Danielle pop up next. Danielle, come on live. What's your question?
Hello, Katie and Rachel. Sorry, I have them on my phone. It's hard to read. I can't see very well, but so I applied to two jobs last week and I haven't heard anything back. I received an email saying like, "Oh, we're reviewing your process, blah blah blah." That was a week ago. Should I like reply to the email or what should I do next?
I would say very typical to at least allow, 7 to 10 business days before responding, just because dependent on the number of applications they're receiving, or even when they're closing the position posting. So sometimes they'll leave it up for a certain amount of time before they even start to review resumes. So they may not have hit the close date yet, and then they need time to review. So I would allow at least 7 to 10 business days. Rachel, I'm not sure if you have any other advice before reaching back out, but reaching out is still important. It's just that time of when we do it.
Yeah, I agree. If there is not a posted closing date for the position, I would usually wait about 7 to 10 days, like Katie said. And then I would make sure that when you do prepare to reach out, to take a look at the email. Sometimes there will be language at the bottom of the email that says, like, do not reply to this email. So the last thing you want to do is get frustrated because you send an email back to that email and then you don't hear anything. So if that's the case, then that's where you might have to do just a little bit more research, some due diligence, where maybe you pull up their website and you find a good phone number. Because I will tell you, like, people don't follow up with employers like they used to in the same way. So I hear so much positive feedback from employers when they're like, this person called, our main office and asked to speak with HR to follow up on a resume, or they contacted us through our contact us page on our website. So there's a couple of different ways you can follow up, but just make sure that on some of those auto-generated emails, if that's what that one was, that if you respond to that, and it says like, do not respond, or it says it's an auto-generated email, that you're just not spinning your wheels in that situation.
Okay, great. Thank you. One of the emails it said I can check the status online, so I checked it and like nothing has happened to it. Um, the other one I can't check the status. And the other one it just says submitted, so they're all kind of just waiting for
Are they all
um
with the same employer or with different
no, they're
employers?
all three different employers.
I don't think it could hurt if you can find a POC to follow up with. Or I don't know if you're in the Heroes program, and we might have a POC that we can help follow up with. So if you're a Heroes participant, you should be forwarding all those applications to Audrey Clarkson from our team so she can help follow up with those employers. Um, but if you're not a participant or we don't have a POC, I think it's worth seeing if you can find a contact and reaching out. If anything, they may share with you and say, hey, this position's open for another 3 days. We won't be reaching out to anybody until after that. So then they'll kind of give you a timeline and a time frame for re-engaging with them.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you both.
You're welcome.
Great question. I'm sure other people have that same, I'm stuck in limbo. What do I do? What is the appropriate time? But I agree. Pick up the phone and call, because not enough people do that anymore. Go old school, because that shows
Yes.
the proactive nature, and that the initiative to that you want the job, right? That you're interested, you're following up. That doesn't happen with kids nowadays, right? And the technology that's out there, picking up the phone, it's not always our first instinct. So
Well,
I
and I
would
always think about
encourage
like
it.
applicant tracking systems and how you may have gotten auto selected out by a computer, right? And it just hasn't sent out rejection letters yet. But when you call a company, let's say maybe you weren't initially being considered, you've made that additional effort, you've been proactive. And so I can almost guarantee you that if you call, they're going to be like, oh, Rachel just called to follow up on this. She wasn't in my pile. Let me go make sure I pull out. And you may have a great conversation with them, and they may be like, hey, you know what? Like, on paper, maybe she wasn't the perfect fit we were looking for, but after talking to her on the phone, I think we should at least bring her in for an interview. So you can always make yourself stand out.
Great advice. Let's see. Austin has his hand up. Austin, come on live.
Hey, Katie and Rachel. I'm coming to you from Fort Liberty HMA. Um, my question was, how would you specifically go to a company and ask for a job they weren't necessarily offering? So I've reviewed, the 12 different companies that are going to be participating. Maybe it's not the job I'm looking for. Maybe they don't have an option for exactly what I'm thinking that I want to go into. Um, how would you ask for a job specifically that's not offered at the moment? And also, how would you, in each of like the private chat rooms, market yourself to a company that doesn't have a job for you at that moment? That makes sense.
So Katie, I'll start on this if you're okay with that. So, um, I think that this is an opportunity, and this is, to me is relevant whether you're doing a virtual career fair or an in-person career fair, because I also believe in in-person career fairs, you should hit every single employer. But I recommend walking up to them and kind of telling them about yourself. Hey, my name is, you said Austin, right?
Mm.
Um, I am transitioning out of the military with this many years of experience in this career path. These are the things I'm passionate about. Like, these are the things I really enjoy that I want to continue to do in a civilian role. I was on your website, but I saw that you don't have any positions open in this. Are there any other positions that you would recommend I look for, or will you have any positions coming available in this? Because sometimes what happens is the job title that we think we're looking for is not the job title that the employer uses either. So this puts that onus back on the employer where you're sharing about your experience, your knowledge, your background, and then you're letting them feed to you the types of positions that they think you would be a good fit for. And this circles back around to that. Maybe there is a position that they know is going to open in a week, but it just hasn't gone live yet, right? For whatever reason, maybe they can only have so many positions listed in this career category at a time or within this department at a time. So this one's not live yet, but they know it's coming and they can make you aware of that. They could grab your resume in preparation for that. So really putting that onus on them to help share some of those opportunities with you as well. But like I said, asking them for the type of positions. What positions should I be considering? What types of roles do you think should be a good fit for? What do you call this career path within your organization? And then Katie, I'll flip it over to you.
I agree. It's career fairs, yes, you're learning about companies and positions, but it's also your research and recon mission, right? It's gathering information to not only learn about that company, but about the industry as a whole. And especially we know from our students, most of us don't have manufacturing backgrounds. And so this is an opportunity to talk directly with those employers about all the things we're learning in class and what do you call it? And we just may not be familiar. So use this as an educational opportunity as well. Um, a lot of jobs are in that hidden job market. That's what we call it. So the forward facing on a career page is what's visible, right? That's the visible job market. There's a whole hidden job market out there with those jobs that are just not posted yet. People are waiting for promotions, but we know that that position is going to get available in a month. We're just waiting for dominoes to fall. And that's where the recruiters have that inside knowledge to let you know, or if a new site is coming online, or maybe a new department is opening, a new position's opening, it's just not ready yet. So I agree with Rachel in asking all those questions and help have them help you navigate the space.
And I'll also add onto that. So after the event, let's say an employer reaches out to you and says, "Hey, we got your resume. You met you at the career fair. We think you'd be a great fit for this role." And maybe that's not the role you thought you were looking for. Take the interview, take the opportunity to engage. And the reason for that, one is always the opportunity to practice, right? Doing those interviews, it's always incredible practice. And I recommend not saying no until you get to the job offer stage, right? That's when you have to make a hard decision. But also during interviews, they may, after talking with you, be like, "Oh, well, we thought we wanted you for this position, but you'd actually be a great fit for this position." And I had that happen with a student back in 2018, our very first year of operation. He was being interviewed for a production supervisor position, but had 20 years of logistics experience. And so during his interview, when he's talking about all of this experience, they're like, oh, we actually have another role that we think you'd be a great fit for. It's a production planner. At that time, I never knew to look for the job title production planner for logistics. That didn't, to me, it dealt more with figuring out what we were making on the production line each day. But what he's was going to be responsible for was all of the supplies, inventory, and all of that needed to package candy. So it was very much a logistics and supply role. But had he not taken that first interview, we never would have gotten to the second job offer. So don't turn interviews down.
Thanks,
Agree.
Katie. Thanks, Rachel.
You're welcome. Do we
Yeah,
have another hand up?
we do. Jared. That dreaded mute button. It's gonna get you.
Evil. Or maybe we were just so thorough we
Jared.
answered his question. Maybe it's supposed to be the two hands like hallelujah. That's right. That's the right answer.
Jared, feel free to drop it in the chat if we can't get that. There was some comments in the chat just for FYI purposes. Brandon did recommend asking AI image generator for a background for Zoom and their banner on LinkedIn. So that was a resource Brandon put in to help if you're looking for an image. So background virtual image and then your LinkedIn banner. So just as a FYI, that's available. And then Jared, oh, Jared, you put in there about a former recruiter. That's you. Oh, you unmuted. Can we hear you? I can't hear you.
So
Your
this is a
mic might
great,
not be.
I was gonna say great opportunity. The carrot next to the audio. So the
Is that better?
microphone. Ah, we hear
Yes.
you.
Okay. Taking a look at some of these jobs, it says you have to have a civilian driver's license, you have to have whatever, Microsoft, whatever pre-qualifications, essentially. Now, there's other systems I know that like warehouses uses, like if you're going to logistics, how you have to use like ESP or some other certs and stuff like that. The Army is pretty much barbaric because they just give you 3 hours of training and then say go. However, if you don't have it, but something equivalent, or you're like, well, I don't have it, but I have X amount of experience, or I've done this, where like, I'm not saying like I don't want to learn, but anytime anybody wants to go like Ranger, just saying like you have to be willing to go airborne, aerosol, stuff like that. But you have to be willing to learn and excel and develop yourself. What is the best way to actually approach these guys if you don't have a certain qualification going? No, I do not have that, but I'm willing to learn, as opposed to just saying no, because no is a very closed door. No, I don't have that right now. Does give chances, but what is the best way to say it where these guys aren't like, well, he don't have it, so next one.
Well, and I'm gonna leave, so I'm gonna leverage the one of the topics that you brought up leading into that question where you were talking about in the logistics side, civilians use a specific system. So what you were probably talking about is a lot of companies use what we call SAP, which is very similar to GCSS Army. So my recommendation in those situations is to find a way to tie your experience to it and to say, I have not specifically worked with the SAP system. However, I have utilized a system that is very similar for inventory and logistics management. It's the GCSS Army system. So I'm very familiar with those types of platforms and would love the opportunity to take that knowledge, skills, and experience and apply it and learn this new platform within your organization as well. So I think it's just finding a way to kind of tie it in. Like it doesn't have to be exact, but being able to say, I do have experience and knowledge that I can leverage that still puts me a leg up and prepares me to tackle this new challenge of this new system. Katie, I'll defer to you.
Agree, and also include that would reduce your time to train, right? So you're not 100% unfamiliar. You can leverage that to quickly learn the new system. Talking with employers, yes, there's qualifications listed on job postings, but a lot of companies live in the gray. You know what I mean? If you can have a conversation with someone and it says this is a minimum qualification, is it really? You know, and that's where you talk to the recruiters and say, is this a non-negotiable, hard line must have? Or is this a, it'd be really nice if they had their Lean Six Sigma black belt, but really look at all this experience that this guy has in process improvement and da, 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 all these things. Let's go ahead and count that as one of the qualifications. Same with education. There's going to be a lot on there where folks are listing must have a bachelor's degree. But when you talk to the recruiters and talk about your 15, 20 years of experience in the military or whatever, 8 years, 10 years, and the equivalence of the experience, oftentimes they can help navigate that space with HR to still push you through, even though you may not have one of those minimum qualifications. So I think doing your research, leveraging what experiences you do have, show them what you have is related, but then asking them where is the wiggle room, that like is this a non-negotiable or is this a something that we can work together on? You know what I mean? That's where those conversations come into play. But I agree when you said no is very final. It's always a no but, and let me tell you.
Yeah,
So
as my
hopefully
kids
that
say,
helps, Jared.
everything that comes before the but doesn't matter. So if you start with no but, it means the no doesn't matter.
Thank you, ladies. I was just wondering because I know it's like I can't do it now, but it doesn't mean you can't ever do it. So
Well, and I think that that's where you get to, as a service member, especially our veterans and our service members, even our military spouses, your adaptability is a lot of the times on a different playing field than, civilian counterparts. So really highlighting, like that's something you can highlight. Like I, maybe your MOS is this, but I have worked in all of these other career paths because of my military service. So I'm incredibly adaptable. And I enjoy the opportunity to tackle new challenges. And that's how I would see this.
And that willingness to learn. We're always learning and adapting every PCS, every unit change, every leadership change. We're adapting and changing. So love that. Let's see, we've got one more question. I know we're already over time, but this is phenomenal conversation. So I'm okay staying if you guys are okay staying. So let's pass it on over to Brandon.
So this kind of goes with the last question that was asked. When I'm looking at jobs and I see, skills that I don't have yet, when I go on LinkedIn, I can see the courses. Would it be a good idea to take familiarizations of those and mention that in the interview that I don't have experience with this, but I'm familiar through these courses?
Absolutely. That's initiative, right? You have identified that you have a skills gap, right? But you're so interested in that role, in that position, that pathway that you're willing to put in some extra effort. And that's what I would share with an employer. I applied for this position knowing that I needed some growth and education in this area. So I've done some additional trainings. I'd be happy to do some more, but I'm really interested in this role.
Agree. I love the initiative. One comes to mind right now, PMP. Maybe that's one on there. PMP is very valuable, but you can do a lot of trainings on LinkedIn Learning to at least identify keywords like what is PMP? What are the key aspects of the training? And that helps you identify, look at all my experience. I've done risk management. I've done QC. I've done these things. I just don't have a certification for it. But at least you can talk intelligently about it, you understand the concepts, and that shows you do have the relevant experience. Oh, and by the way, I'm willing to get it someday if afforded the opportunity to earn that certification itself. I love that, Brandon. That's a really good one. I hope some folks jot that down as something they can do when they
Yeah,
identify a gap.
that's what I try to encourage folks. If you're looking for jobs and you identify that there is that gap somewhere, you're seeing that, especially if you're seeing it over and over in jobs that you're really interested in, is it affords you the opportunity to do some trainings. And it doesn't have to be an extensive, long training, but showing that initiative and then leveraging that during an interview with an employer, and sharing, like, I'm willing to continue to train in this area because I am so interested and passionate about this career path.
Uh, One of the skills specifically I've seen in almost every listing is, office skills, Excel super user type stuff. Do you have any good recommendations for good programs or certification that I can get that shows, hey, I know how to do VLOOKUP, XLOOKUP, and pivot tables versus just saying I know how to do it?
Honestly, LinkedIn Learning, if you have a LinkedIn Premium account, there's a lot of truly great trainings there where you also get certifications at the end of it, that can be really invaluable. I was trying to think, I don't think I was going to recommend O2O, but I don't think they have any Excel-based
I would look at
certifications.
Coursera. So
Coursera.
Coursera, as a military member, you get free access to Coursera. I'm not sure if it's a time limit or when you're active duty. I don't know the details, but VTS, Veteran Transition Support, is a resource to help gain that free access to Coursera. There are others, but that's one that I know of. So Coursera might have some of those trainings, but I was about to use that exact example of Excel. So in the military, we experts PowerPoint, right? It's where we live, but you guys, the way you use PowerPoint is much different than us civilian folk and how we use PowerPoint. And so I think doing some of those trainings to see what is your intended audience and how do they use PowerPoint, Excel, Word, even things like Outlook. If you're not someone who sits in an office all day, maybe you've been in the motor pool for the last 10 years, really catching yourself up with those everyday technology softwares, I think will at least even you out so that learning curve is less when you get to the job if it's part of the job. I love that, Brandon. That's a good one. And a lot of times they don't require a certification. They just want to make sure you can do it. It's a hard skill. Show
Yep.
me. Can you do a pivot table? Cool. Show me. That's what they're going to look for. But LinkedIn Learning does have some great ones as well. And even look at, you guys are in an event like this. We're learning Zoom, virtual backgrounds, how to utilize virtual platforms. I can tell you, even in-person teams nowadays, like actual physical teams at a facility, still have Teams calls. So being able to use this is even a resource for you.
And I see Alberto's question. Katie, do you want to lead off on that one?
I haven't read it yet.
Okay. So he indicated that he had applied for a position, didn't follow up on it, didn't receive any correspondence, and he went back in to check on it. His application says no longer considered, but the company just posted the job again. So he was asking if he should follow up with them. I would say I would obviously take a look at your resume again, just to make sure that you're really aligning it with the position that you applied for. And then I would probably go ahead and apply and then re-engage and follow up with them. Let them know that you've applied, express your interest, kind of tell them how your skills align with that position. But make sure that you follow up. What may have happened that first time is you once again may have been auto sorted out by an applicant tracking system, so you may never have even made it to a live set of eyes. And if they reposted it, it's probably because they didn't find the right fit. So I think applying and then re-engaging with the employer is really important.
I'm responding to a question in the chat. Yes, I agree. Everything that Rachel said, I would do that same exact step. Hopefully that answers your question, Alberto. There's also a question regarding if you have to be verified as military before you get premium. I'm assuming LinkedIn premium. So I dropped in the link. You do have to be verified. It used to be through ID Me. It might be through another one of those kind of verification things, but you do verify that you're active duty. FYI, pass it to your spouse if you are married and you have a military spouse. They also get LinkedIn Premium for 1 year, but they need to have their dependent card. So make sure you do it while you're active duty. They can set theirs up to be good for 1 year as well.
Yep. Any other questions before we wrap her up? Great
You
questions,
guys,
everyone. This has been wonderful.
yes, I agree. And we learn from each other. And you probably had a question. So thank you for the brave souls who asked the questions and came on live or dropped in the chat, because I bet there were folks who had that same question but didn't want to ask or didn't know how to phrase it. So thank you for your participation. I do just want to drop in a quick reminder. We've got lots of things coming up. So if you're not already scheduled for this Friday, schedule. Register for the February 7th Regional Career Fair as well as the National Career Fair. That's on February 28th. Those are the two virtual ones. And then if you happen to be at Fort Riley, mark your calendar for April 10th. Thursday, April 10th is going to be the in-person career fair at Fort Riley. And then this summer, if you're at Cavazos, there's going to be an in-person one on July 31st. It's a little ways out, but if you're not quite to your application window anyways, that might still fit into your timeline. And there's lots of other careers out there. Rachel mentioned go to the in-person, stay in contact with your TAP office at your local TAP office. What is going on the installation? Go to the in-person events, go to other virtual career fairs. You got to navigate all the platforms, but look at the employers. There might be one that you're like, oh, I never even knew this existed. Go and talk to them. I hope that you all learned something today. Job searching is an incredibly daunting process if we are unfamiliar with how to navigate the waters. So the more and more you educate yourself on how to be successful and actually using the tips and tricks, I promise you, you will not have a problem finding a job. We just got to put all the puzzle pieces together, and the magic will happen. I promise. The more effort you put in, the more return on investment you're going to get. So that's what I'm going to leave you with that thought. Rachel, any thoughts before we let these folks go?
Nope, I'll just remind you guys on our career fairs, especially those virtual ones, Katie and I will be there in the lobby. So if you get in there, you get a little nervous, you need somebody to talk to just to kind of level set, come in and chat with us. Pick our brains, ask questions. Maybe we can give you some pointers for when you go into that next breakout room. We're here to help. We care about the military community, so just leverage those resources, and we're one of them.
That's a wrap, guys. Go enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. See you all Friday. Thanks for joining.